Hello, one-ones and lav-lavs. Welcome to the HPTV podcast. We're talking Half-Blood Prince. We all rewatched the movie, and we're going to talk about the changes from the book. We're going to talk about what we then want to be improved for the TV series. But first thing, I'm very excited because yesterday, 2 days ago, was the first day that media members and photos and videos were allowed to be taken in Epic Universe. And everyone said this new Paris area is beautiful and doesn't matter that it's connected to Fantastic Beasts. In fact, the Fantastic Beasts show is supposed to be really cool. But now I've seen images about going through the flume and into this full-size ministry and this ride that is like a combination of things. So I'm not going to say anything because I think some people don't want to be spoiled. And my wife and I had this conversation because I'm a theme park nerd, and she was like, do you not want to be surprised? Because we're hopeful to go in the near future, mostly to visit Steven, but then we might stop by a theme park. But I was like, I think in person it'll still be really magical, and it's far enough away that I know I'm going to have something spoiled where I feel like I've been following the construction, so I wanted to see it happen. But what do you guys think? Do you want to know what it is, or are you just excited to experience it at some point?
First, I would say that's the bonus of living in Orlando, is that you get the twofer when you come. You get to see Steven, of course, and then there's also all the theme parks and things, which is cool. No, I don't know that even living here, like looking at how much it costs to get into freaking Epic Universe, that's an investment. Like, especially, I can't go without my kids because I've turned them into Potterheads. And I have to take them. So it's at least 3 tickets. That's like $600 for one day. That's wild. So I keep telling myself, like, I might as well just watch all the videos because ticket prices ain't coming down anytime soon. But part of me really does want to go and experience it. And I feel like we had a lot more of that the first time. I mean, obviously, because you didn't have TikTok and all that kind of stuff, right? When we went into Hogsmeade and everything, when that opened to Islands of Adventure. And that was pretty awesome. So I have seen a few things, but I have tried to, like, not watch too much of it for that very reason. I want to at least, feel surprised by the immersion.
I don't know if I'll watch POVs of those rides. I mean, I'll see some images, but I don't mind watching POVs of roller coasters. As some people think that ruins it. I'm like, look, I've read all the Thuzy stuff. Like, I know how all the different moves and things, and I don't feel like that concerns me one bit. But when it comes to like the stuff, because also in Dark Universe, there's supposed to be a really cool monster ride, and that kind of works like Forbidden Journey. I'm not too worried about that, but I'm not going to maybe look into every nook and cranny when hopefully I can go. And yeah, they finally released single day tickets, but they're expensive. And then there's no like Florida resident discount. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm a Florida resident via London.
Oh,
it's complicated. So we'll see. Hopefully it's more possible at some point. And I mean, if I go, I'm definitely going to go because, it's going to be my only chance. But yeah, a lot of people bought those packages where you had to buy a 3-day package and only one of them could be Epic Universe. And that's expensive. And then you have, don't get me wrong, I enjoy the other parks and stuff, but like I kind of just want 2 days, 3 days to try and explore every nook and cranny of a new park. Like, as someone who's been to Disney enough, luckily because of connections, not because I can afford it, like, and gotten to like enjoy those parks in a way. And it is interesting to see the first major Orlando park open since the rise of social media. You can kind of say Galaxy's Edge was a mini one in itself and Diagon Alley, but social media is so much more prevalent. To get a full gate that is this expansive is very exciting.
That's huge. Yeah, for me, so my son has autism and one of his special interests is amusement parks. So like he's been like, my TikTok is full of stuff because like he'll want to see videos of what's happening. And so just this week with like, now that because they've been letting people go in, and so there's been some stuff leaked, but this was like finally like the social media influencer kind of preview thing. So it keeps popping up in my feed. And so I've seen probably more than I want, but I probably won't be able to go for a while. So I'm like, I'll probably forget. And also he wants to watch a lot of stuff. And he's not just, I mean, he would be more Mario, How to Train Your Dragon, but he wants to see everything. So I've seen like kind of what the ride looks like. And really, I haven't seen like a POV of people riding. I don't think they're supposed to yet film that, but I've seen what it looks like the seats and everything for the Ministry ride and like what the queue looks like. And I mean, it just looks so cool. Like
the scale is just crazy.
It's huge. And just all of like, I don't know if they'll like go back on this and start filling in space, but there's a lot of space, it seems like. It kind of just feels more like Epcot to me. Everything's more spread out and there's lots of space. It was just nice. Like I always say Epcot from the Disney parks is one of my favorites because you don't feel as like suffocated.
Well, and if there's the water and like the greenery and the lights, like they seem like they're spacing that celestial park out in the middle so that it breathes, and then you go into each portal. And Mario, I know, Jimmy, you've actually been to Mario in California, but it I know in Japan it's even tighter, and they like this one, they're letting it breathe just a little bit.
Yeah, it's small in California.
I was going to ask about How to Train Your Dragon because I've seen the first film. I forgot about it, so I'm going to rewatch it. There's obviously a live action one coming out, but that area looks so cool, so well done. It has the most attractions by far. I'm just curious if your kids like it, if you think they'd be pumped to see that in person, or if there's going to be like, it's another cool ride. Doesn't really matter my relationship to the IP.
My kids will be excited to see it. It's not like they're obsessed with the movies or anything. I think it's the generation between us that must love it because now at Universal Studios, what's the regular one?
They have
like the DreamWorks Land. Is that in Islands of Adventure?
Yeah. No,
it's in
and like
Universal Studios.
I think Kung Fu Panda is the bigger IP, so I'm kind of surprised they did that in there. They like shoved it in amongst those and then gave How to Train Your Dragon its own thing. But I was talking to my husband about this. I was like, dragons have always been a big thing to a lot of people. But ever since Game of Thrones and all that, I think people love dragons. And there's so much you can do with that, like flying coasters and all that stuff. So I think there's just more room to play with that there. And it hits like that younger audience. Like when Harry Potter World opened for us, I don't think this is quite as big to the next generation, but they do really like that. And it sounds like they're already counting on the live action movie doing really well.
Yeah, they've ordered the sequel as of CinemaCon.
Well, that was my thought too. Yeah, is that like one is you could do a lot of really cool stuff with dragons, and because the animatronics, like some of the stuff I've seen out there, sounds like it's pretty awesome. So I think they may have chosen it in part because it's like Burke and dragons would be really cool. I think there's a loyal enough following, but it's also one of those unique circumstances where like the live action movies are coming out after the park opens, right? So I think that they're counting on that driving a whole new, group to want to come and experience it, which I think is a solid play. Maybe it'll, get a strong enough fan base that they can grow it further with the live action or something. That'd be interesting because my kids like it, but I wouldn't say they like it any more than most of the other kids stuff that they watch.
My kids aren't asking to watch that on repeat, but my kids are also, younger. But I do think it just proves like what Harry Potter did. I think a lot of people when Harry Potter World opened thought, well, this generation is going to move on. People aren't going to want to go to Harry Potter amusement park. But if the rides are good and it's immersive enough, I don't think people care. Like, I want to go see it. And I'm not like a How to Train Your Dragon fan. Like, it's still going to look cool. The rides look fun. It just gives you a theme that also has an IP behind it that helps. So I think it's like Avatar. It's not like I don't know many people that are like obsessed with Avatar. I'm sure there's plenty, but like it's not like they go seek out Avatar, but it's cool to see that in real life.
Yeah, it's something otherworldly and different enough. Like my mother-in-law, she's not a huge like Potterhead or anything like that. She's never even seen all the movies, I don't think. But one of the first times they came to visit us here, she wasn't even that interested in going to Disney. But she's like, "But Harry Potter, I think Harry Potter would be really cool." And so we took her. And I mean, it is cool. Slightly biased, I guess. So a lot of like, even though they're not huge fans, like it's unique enough, I think, and interesting enough that they want to go see it.
Like if you make it immersive and people can be like, "Oh, I'm in this other world," you don't have to have that kind of relationship to it. It is interesting that they went with How to Train Your Dragon and it's big and it's a single IP, whereas like Super Nintendo, I mean, it is Mario based and now they have the Donkey Kong section, but there's a lot of Zelda stuff around. People think they're going to add Zelda to the expansion pad. Obviously, Pokemon, that's got to come to one of the other two parks. They said there's already huge expansion plans for the other two. And so a lot of people think that'll be Pokemon, which is technically like the world's biggest IP in some way. Like it makes the most money in one way because it does have a lot of generations and time. And that's the thing. Yeah. How to Train Your Dragon is a little lost, but I didn't realize there were three. I knew there were three movies, but the TV series are apparently there's a few of them and they do quite well. So yeah, I'm down. And it's just the way they've done it. It looks like they did a great job. So I'm kind of willing to walk into whatever. And yeah, this last Harry Potter bit, there's a show and a ride, whereas Diagon Alley, there's really just a ride. So they're really building these grand lands and not putting second attractions in them. And even, well, now Hogsmeade has 2 e-tickets since Hagrid opened, but it's interesting to see how they divvy that up. But if they had to have Potter in each one to see how that they could, and we did a whole episode on theme parks. So if this interests you, you haven't heard it, go back and check that out. But I'm excited about Epic Universe. Hopefully I can go this year. And it was just cool to see all that leak out. And it's just one more way to participate in the story and go into the Fantastic Beasts films, which I think we're going to do after these movies. We are going to talk about them and we'll have to relate it back to the TV series as best we can. But it'll be interesting to go back through them and say, here's what flaws we have. And here's what we want to make sure we do right next time the property expands. But for now, let's go to 6th year.
Hold on, because I had resigned myself to I'm not going to go, and now I'm all excited now that we're talking about it. So
But just
I'm
also
going to go ahead
remember,
and
I resisted sending you so
you're
many
gonna be
TikToks.
standing in line all day. Like that's
Steven.
you're just gonna be in line.
Well,
but
that's the thing. I was like,
so freaking cool. Remember the
So just pay
the
$200
Forbidden
more
Journey line?
for the fast
I
pass
know.
thing.
well, you just
Do they
walk
have that
around.
already? Is that in there?
I don't know.
They do, and it is really expensive.
So when we post this
It was like
video, I'm going to
$260.
post my Venmo along with it. So anyone who feels like contributing to Steven being able to afford to go to Epic Universe, I'll
I feel
take
like you
50
need
cents,
a day
$20,
just to
whatever.
walk around and enjoy the theming and look at the
Yeah.
details in the shops and the food, and then a day where you're like, okay, I'm just going to wait in a bunch of, I'll try and hit the short ones. So maybe you need 3 days, and then one where you're going to wait in the long queues. It's Steven, you could go by yourself and just take your kids next year. Just take one
I
day.
just won't tell them where I'm going.
I got to go
I know.
in the office. I'm going on a work trip. And then
This is for the podcast.
I would do. Yeah, it's for our
It's for work.
podcast that generate. It's for my other.
I did that the first time I went to Harry Potter. I did 2 days. Just when they opened the one side of Harry Potter, I went one day, rode all the rides. The next day, I just walked around and looked at everything and took pictures of everything.
It'll be very interesting to see how busy this is and what they're not really using virtual queues, and they're having all these previews, but when it's open, it is open, and those days are sold out. So it'll be really interesting to see what the wait times are like. A lot of the rides are quite heavy capacity, but a couple of them have not even fully been able to operate yet. So
Well, and if you see the queues they're building for them, you're gonna be in line for a
I
while.
know.
You're gonna have
The
some cool stuff to look at,
Yeah.
but you're gonna be in line for a while.
I hope you like looking at Umbridge
Come
and ministry
on,
offices for literally there's like hundreds of turnbacks in there.
Yeah.
I could see how many of the Harry Potter movies I could watch while I'm in line waiting for Epic Universe.
This
There's gonna be a
sounds like
bathroom in that ministry.
a good
Solid
in-person reporting for the podcast. I went to see Cursed Child. You go to see Epic Universe.
I mean,
All right, let's get to Half-Blood Prince. Where do you guys have this one ranked in your rankings?
Okay, this is number 2 for me. I love this movie. There's some really good moments in this movie. When I first saw it, there was a giant what the F. I wasn't mad at it because I do think what was done was really well done, but just like major plot moments from the books are not in there, where I feel like all the other movies, they try to hit those. I understand why not, but this movie over time, like when I rewatch and watch different movies or I think about the movies, I love this movie as a movie. As a adaptation, I don't know, but it does hit some things very straight on, but there's a lot cut from it. But overall, as a movie, it's my number 2. Steven's
see,
shaking
for
his head.
me, it's actually it's number 7. It's second to last.
Oh my god!
Only Prisoner of Azkaban is worse in my book. And it's for a lot of what you said. Like, I try and think of it like, okay, it's an individual movie, it's its own story and things. Like, yeah, there's some good things about it, but I feel like there's so many things for them when you get into Deathly Hallows that don't make sense, or they have to go and explain because it wasn't featured in Half-Blood Prince like it should have been. And so it's just quit messing with my characters and having them do crap they wouldn't do. Quit skipping out on stuff that's really important for the overall series. And I feel like there are a few areas where they did focus on some funny stuff that was entertaining to me. Some of the relationship stuff was pretty funny to see on screen. There's some moments that they hit, but just overall, I remember coming out of it being it was funny because when I first saw it, it was kind of the opposite, Jamie. I thought oh, that was pretty solid, but I hadn't read the book in a very long time, so I went back and reread the book, and I was like, wait a second, they left out a ton of crap that's really important, and that's just kind of where it was for me this time too. I watched it, I enjoy it, but it pisses me off on so many different levels that I couldn't put it any higher than that. Mitchie, where did you put it?
4. It's tough because I was looking at hey, why did I like 4 and 5? And it's because I think they actually tell individual stories really well, but they also propel this thing forward. Whereas I think 6 actually tells a decent independent story and it is really fun. But yeah, it doesn't connect up very well. And maybe I blame it for some of the reasons that Deathly Hallows doesn't come together as much as I'd like. And then I was comparing it to 3, whereas I like the style and the zaniness of 3, but I was like, which one was I having more fun with and that sort of thing. And so it's muddled. And I was also trying to really delineate, okay, what's the favorite and what's the best adaptation? Because I think those are 3 very different types of rankings. But for now, I have this at 4. It might be the third movie I've put at 3 or 4. It's fine. We'll do final rankings after we watch the 8th and final film. But let's go to the angry things. Steven, why don't you lead us off here with a couple
Most angry?
of howlers, the things that frustrated you the most.
I won't spend a ton of time on these because these are things I've actually complained about in the past, right, in reference to other things. But like lighting the burrow on fire, like burning that down, that whole scene, it was interesting to see more Bellatrix, but like, why? And then the next movie, boom, it's just back. Nothing happened. Like, so there's zero consequences to like the crap that people are pulling. So like, why do the Death Eaters even matter? So that kind of thing I feel like hurts all the continuity. And then this was the story where you spend time getting to know Voldemort as a kid and like how twisted he really was in his head. And like we didn't get that. You get like a few flashbacks. It's not, you don't spend as much time there as you would like to. And again, I know time is always the issue, but I feel like Thanos is a really good example of a place where they were able to really take a villain and, through little, I don't know, clips in other movies and then spend some time with him. Like he really thinks he's the hero. He thinks and so you get to understand that about him in Infinity War. And then of course, Endgame, it kind of comes full circle. And so I just feel like that there was an opportunity that was completely lost there to like dig into who Voldemort is. Cause otherwise he's just a bad guy. And I mean, he's a good bad guy, but at the same time, it's like, there's just a lot of depth to it that we didn't get because they didn't put it in the movie. And then they just completely skipped over the big fight at the end. Like you see Harry and you focus on Harry and Dumbledore, which I get, which is important, but it's kind of like this is all those other characters, everybody, from Dumbledore's army who kind of came back to help. Like this was them all kind of showing up again and fighting the Death Eaters and proving that school kids could do more than just run and hide and stuff. And they skipped over all of that, so we didn't really get to see so much of that, which was frustrating to me. And then the very last one that I'll cover right now is just the complete 180 they do with Harry in relation to Slughorn, where oh no, I do have one more actually I have to talk about after this, but just hit me. Harry in relation to Slughorn and the whole like him being enthusiastic about trying to go to Slughorn's parties and try like that's the complete opposite of what he is in the book. And he's not a glory hound like that. He doesn't like the attention like that. And so it's just like Dumbledore told him to get close to Slughorn, and so he's all like and it's like no, dude.
I love it.
Me nuts.
I love
and then here's the very last thing, and this is probably the worst one. Again, not tied to Harry. I promise this is actually my last one. Is at the end, when Dumbledore is up there with Draco talking, and Harry is just standing there watching, come on, he would not do that. That is the stupidest crap in the world. And your
I think
mentor,
movie
the
Harry
one like
would.
father figure you have. Well, and that's a problem. And
I think that's the
screwed up
difference
movie
between
Harry.
movie
You know what
Harry
I mean? It's
and
through
book Harry. Yeah.
because in the books, like he was
Frozen.
stunned. He was frozen. He couldn't do anything. Like he was literally stuck, and he had to watch in horror as this thing happened. But like in the movie, he's just kind of down there. It's like, dude, get up there and do something. Maybe you don't have a wand, but like throw a punch. Like do something. You pains. Did he have his wand? I can't remember when he's down there. Does he
has his wand. He trusts Dumbledore, and he believes in Snape at that point.
I mean, but he
defend
mistrusts Draco so much. Like the whole time, like now he's just gonna trust Draco not to pull
But
something with his wand.
He
And
sees Draco
Voldemort's
struggling.
there in
He
his
sees
face.
it. And he knows
I
that
don't know that
Dumbledore could take on Draco if he had to.
But then
Well, he was
Dumbledore not
weakened.
have a wand in this scenario.
I know. Just Expelliarmus him.
I just think it was so out of character,
below.
and it just and it leaves everyone wondering, like, why didn't you do something, you friggin' pansy? Like that's just where I felt like with Harry. So I feel like there's enough unforgivable moments in there that like don't go. It's low on the list.
It's funny because I think a lot of the small changes they could have made, which we'll cover in the pensive, are things that needed time. And the way they had to yada yada and move through things emotionally with Harry, with Slughorn, with Voldemort, he didn't get to feel those things develop and those emotions change. I think they come off really jarring. And then, maybe it does put Harry in a more uncertain position. And also it's a lot of causation. Like they did the big action sequence at the Burrow, and then they didn't need a double action sequence at the end because you got Harry and Dumbledore and the fire and stuff getting the locket. And then when they come back to Hogwarts, they didn't want to have another battle, and they probably felt that battle was going to be a little too similar to the Ministry of Magic. But I think it's their responsibility to adjust that storytelling, and there's people from the Order there, so it can kind of combine a little bit differently. So I think those things not meshing was frustrating for me. I'll just jump in a few of mine. Harry should be more obsessed with Malfoy. I don't think that comes off as well. Like, it's almost quite creepy in the book. Quidditch is a big one for me. So they move the Ron playing Quidditch to this, and some of it's really funny, but he is bad to a kind of a ridiculous point, and it's all played for laughs. Whereas I think when it's connected to Grop, and when it's the Weasleys are king and he overcomes that, and Harry gives him the Felix Felicis later in that, after he's already had this time playing Quidditch, and the Felix Felicis is a later addition, then I think it pays off a little bit better.
And it validates that Ron is actually good, but he just has self-confidence issues, which I think you understand more in the books, that like Harry didn't make him magically good. He just gave him the confidence.
Yeah, this one, it happens so quickly where things turn for him. You never get Weasley's or king. You never get him really made fun of and everything. And then Cormac is supposed to be good, but he's also kind of supposed to be...
He is good, though, in this.
He is, yeah.
Oh, but he's supposed to be, like, ego.
He's supposed to... The way that he's supposed to, like, annoy Harry, and that is, again, a thing with you need a whole season for. You need over time. We're going to have to get, like, multiple Quidditch matches in these
just a Quidditch side series.
Who knew? And Cormac is also kind of supposed to be unappealing, and this Cormac is, like, a
cute,
pretty good-looking dude. Pretty good-looking guy. The other thing with Ron is him and Lavender is so funny. It's so well done. But one, I wish we had Lavender earlier so we knew who she was a little bit. I think that could make way more interesting her and Hermione's dynamic, because they share a dormitory, and like Hermione's kind of been ostracized by the girls in a way which we don't get seen to be explored all that much. Then the other thing is they kind of steal Harry and Ginny's kiss. It happens for them on the back of a Quidditch moment instead of Harry and Ginny happening on the back of a Quidditch moment. And, you know, I was thinking, I was like, Harry and Ginny stuff, like the unspoken stuff is actually not bad. It's as soon as they start speaking. It's as soon as she says, you can leave that in there too. And the kiss is so bad. And her
so
like trying to like relate to him, the way they like mesh her into the gang, they could do that so much more smoothly using, you know, the DA and stuff, because they kind of shoehorn her into a few scenes. Like they could show that her friendship with Hermione's growing. They make that all really awkward, and then the kiss is awkward, and then the whisper is awkward. The whole him hiding the book changing, like those plot points changing. Oh, the shoe tying. Yeah. I was like, is this suggestive?
I thought that the moment I saw it.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Merry Christmas, Harry.
And then like her and Dean, like we should see why'd they break up other than him helping her through the
poor Dean gets the most mentions in this book. Hardly in it. Yeah, doesn't even show him.
Gives him a bad look.
Oh, well, there's just so much more to Ginny. Ginny becomes such a like one-dimensional character who's just kind of there, who like, oh yeah, this girl still exists from the second movie, and now she's important because Harry likes her. I don't know. And there wasn't anything the build up to like other guys liking Ginny. You know what I mean? Like she was getting around and stuff. Like she was like,
but she's not.
She was not getting around. She dated Michael Corner, and then she dated Dean Thomas, right?
Yeah, you guys stop.
And maybe Neville. That's one per year. Ginny. That's fine.
And not Neville. She went to the
Fred and George just made it feel like they were more, and that's a brother's job.
I will. Ginny's an underdeveloped character in the book and in the movies. Period. I mean,
you get hints of it in the book, but she never really gets developed, and then she gets underwritten in the films. And so, like, there are some choices I really didn't like of Bonnie Wright's, but I don't really think it's her fault that her character hadn't been developed and then was put in these horrible situations to try and make these connections. Like, then when they are all of a sudden kissing again in 8 or whatever, or they miss each other. Actually, the best moment they have is probably when George catches them in the next film, when it's kind of funny and like there's kind of horny teenagers. It's bungled. I'll do a couple really quick other ones. I'll say later because it's part of a bottle episode idea that I have. First of all, you cannot operate in Hogwarts, and the fact that Harry says, "Can't you not operate in Hogwarts?" and Dumbledore's like, "You can if you're Dumbledore." Shut up.
Dumbledore can do whatever he wants, Mitchell.
Let them go. Let's go to Hogsmeade, do the Madame Rose murder thing, her giving Katie the box. That easily could have been done in this movie, to have her, because we knew her.
But we don't know that in the book either. We don't see that.
It could have been cleverly shown. It would have been taken 5 seconds. And the last one is too much sepia. It was
It
the
looked cool in
memories.
theaters. It hasn't translated.
It was 1 hour and 25 minutes in, which is a little over halfway when I was like, because some of the scenes aren't so bad. And then we went back to it and I was like, what are we doing? When they're in the Ministry of Magic and they're in like the black tiled room and it's just bleeding it. And I was like, this looks like the bad Snapchat filter from when Snapchat was like brand new. It's so,
too glowy. Yeah, I agree on that. Okay, I feel like my howler is going to be defending this movie when I get to it.
You should. And then we can move into your positives and then we'll go back around because I do have some positives.
Oh, good.
I do too.
Well,
I've got a couple.
I will say, like, the worst changes to me, I get why some things, I guarantee that, like, the studio did not allow them to do the battle. It was probably like, we're doing that in the next book, but, you know.
Well, then they
That's already
mistimed the battle
happening.
because they clearly spent the money on the Christmas thing at the Burrow.
Well, yeah, this was like the
Yeah.
most expensive movie of the movies to be made, which makes some sense to me cast-wise, how much they had to use people, where in the next movie that's a little spread out and all that jazz. But I'm like, where did that money go? Anyway, so the things that I really dislike, that I wish we had the other minister, but I get why that was cut. We haven't really had much of a relationship with Fudge anyway, and then to cut to two completely different characters. And I would have rather had Spinner's End, which I did keep. Dumbledore and the Dursleys, I think, would have just been a really nice wrap up to the Dursleys. I know we kind of get that in the next movie, but just giving that moment, and we didn't really talk about it so much. Like in the last movie, Petunia getting the letter and like, remember, we're like, what does this mean? And then figuring out later what it means and how much she really knew was such a big thing. So
A
that
lot of scenes they could have planted.
the battle I miss, but I understand. I really miss the funeral. What a cool moment in the books. My husband will say he really misses the conversation between Scrimgeour and Harry. He really misses that, and I miss that too. That's his favorite
There's
part
like
of all
the
the
whole
books.
propaganda storyline that they.
Yeah.
It's just important, the way that the dark side and light, like, and the Ministry is kind of stuck in the middle, is a very interesting fact that doesn't get talked about in the films.
And it's like one of the most real life perspectives is that how politics gets involved in all this, and like people caring about image more than what, or wanting to reassure everyone instead of causing panic, all that kind of stuff.
Well, this is what I was talking about last book, though, real quick. Is just like that whole thing where this was our chance to, the fifth movie was the chance to kind of like understand the Ministry a little bit better, right? This balance between like keeping everything secret and keeping everyone's trust. And that's really what Scripture is trying to do, right? And I think in many ways it's coming from a good place. Like if we can get Harry, like people believe in him, if he can make them think he believes in us, we can get the trust back and then we can get things moving again. But Harry there's no trust for Harry with them. And so he's not able to instill any of that. And it's that careful balance just keeps teetering the wrong way. So that is something I would really love to see more of. Sorry, Jamie.
No, you're fine. And then I talked about this, I think, at the top, like overall for the series. I hope there's more Voldemort. And this is like where, I mean, everything Stephen just talked about. And I really think it was a lost opportunity as a movie making moment to have that scene between Fiennes and Gambon, like going head to head with the interview. Like we could have seen Ralph Fiennes like looking more like himself, not full Voldy yet. Like that interview moment and the power dynamic between him and Dumbledore, which explains so much and also would help carry through the next movie as Harry tries to come to terms with like finding out who Dumbledore really was, and like, you know, that big moment we talked about where you realize like your parents are people, and that's kind of what he goes through in the seventh book for the first half. But I always am like, man, I wanted to see that just as like a movie lover. It would have been such a good scene between like two really good actors. Okay, but in defense of this movie, I really do think like all those things we want were not going to be possible all in this book. Most people will say this is their favorite book, and then but I feel like they pulled from this book what was important. It's important to find out about the Horcruxes. It's important to see Dumbledore die and Harry kind of taking over. I do think, and again, I've said this throughout, they do not give Harry much as a protagonist in these movies. Like, and that kind of just works in this movie because that's what we've been seeing from him. I don't know. And this is like a big moment for him because he is taking the full step over. He's now taking control of everything. It's up to him now and his friends. We're coming with you, Harry. But I do feel like the parts that were taken from this movie were really well done. The pacing, I think, is really good. It's the first time there's really room to breathe. And it's because they had to get rid of some of that stuff. But there's just these little moments that I love so much. I really actually prefer Slughorn in the movie versus the book, which is bad. I think Jim Broadbent does such a good job. Like, not at all how I imagined him, but he does so good. He like really helps carry this movie. I think the performances by the trio are very good. I feel like Daniel's too passive. He was directed to be too passive, but I feel like Emma Watson does a really good job. I feel Rupert does a really good job. And I feel like this movie's more fantastical and just touching on like elements from the book. And it has like some of the feelings from the book, but it does feel really different. The book feels a lot sillier and lighter to me most of the time. This movie felt really serious a lot of the time. And like those, like the horniness. I remember reading this book. This is where I learned the word snogging because I live in America. All that stuff, I just like, we were just like, whoa, these kids. And that was like a fun part of reading it. And they touch on that. So I feel like they touch on all these little things, but I think they took what they could and they made what they could out of it, because the problem is they haven't built up all those other things enough to like address them in this movie. So they just took what they needed to like continue on to the next two and went with it. That's my feelings.
I do think that snogging is a really good example of times that I learned about something in Harry Potter, and I wasn't sure if it was a British thing or if it was like a made-up wizarding thing. Because like that term I'd never heard it before. That's not one we ever used in the States, and I was like, snogging. And so I was like, maybe Rowling just made that one up. No.
So, do you guys want my defense of the burrow thing now, or do you want it later? Because I have that too.
We'll do that.
I share a couple things that I think they got right.
Okay, let's go positives.
I just want to say something about snogging. There is there's a film called Angus, Thongs, and Perfect Snogging, and it's like a coming of age, like, I don't know, 13, 14-year-old girl who like is embarrassed and has a crush on this boy, and she has a cat named Angus, and she starts wearing thongs, and they talk about how to snog. But it's Hannah's favorite movie of all time, and the lead actress is married now to Rupert Grint. So the snogging has come full circle.
It's just such a funny word.
They do use it though.
I know.
Weird. Even old people. Right. Anyway.
You're positive, Stephen?
Go to some positive things, Steve. Go ahead.
So one of the positives I had was Slughorn. Tom Felton, I thought, did a pretty good job in this movie of kind of showing how conflicted he was.
And
he's kind of coming around to just like not necessarily enjoying being the bad guy anymore or the bully, and he was kind of like, what the heck am I actually doing? And you could see that. You could see that happening like kind of in his brain. The cave scene was actually really cool. I think a lot of the cinematography and stuff in general was good, except for the sepia like you were talking about. And there's some really good, funny scenes, like the Felix Felicis scene is pretty funny.
Great sequence.
And then I feel like Dumbledore was more like book Dumbledore in this movie to a degree, but it was weird and felt out of character for him because the last two movies he was like freaking out at everything and like panicking instead of like cool, calm Dumbledore. And so it was nice to see him come back and see Gambon play Dumbledore the way he should have been doing it the whole time. I would say the last thing that I put down that I really liked was the Weasley's Wizard Wheezy's, the joke shop. I thought it was cool and was fun. I like just all the orange. I mean, obviously really inspired what's in Diagon Alley in the theme parks now. And it's just the way it pops compared to all the other buildings and going in there. Like, it's very fun. I felt like that was a really cool, really fun scene.
Yeah, this is the one that Fred and George aren't really in. And I know in the book they do come to visit Ron at one point. So they get one more kind of moment. But I did think about like, oh, they were kind of quite absent for this one. I will go through some. And here's the thing. I overall enjoy this movie a lot. The fun of it does make up a lot for the negatives, but it might have just dropped to 5th in my rankings in my mind. Anyway, there's more.
You're welcome.
Gratuitous London at the beginning of this. I always love a ridiculous reason to show it. Slughorn's house, that whole sequence, well, of course I want it to be longer. Like I'd like there to be some more of that interaction where he really gets intrigued by Harry. I don't know if that's communicated well. I just thought the visuals and his introduction, maybe that just goes to show what a good character he was. Lavender Brown, she was given one note to play, but you know what? It really paid off. I don't need Lavender Brown and Pavarti to be big characters in the show, but it would be nice if we knew them a little bit and understood their dynamic with Hermione slightly.
I think that they could be one of the funnest side stories, though, is like if they were to spend a little bit of time on them, like that's what makes it feel more like high school-y, you know what I mean? With those two girls who are spreading rumors and laughing and giggling, but everyone kissing and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think it would be great.
Yeah, they seem to be like they could just be teenagers, you know, who aren't having to be bothered with all the seriousness. The The Felix Felicis, it's funny, they describe it as, Slughorn says he's never had a draft of Living Death good enough to give away the Felix Felicis, which is not in the book. I think in the book it's just going to the best one and essentially says Harry deserves it. I thought that was a weird little change. I'm always torn on Felix Felicis because I think it's fun. I think the sequence is great. I just don't know about that existing in a magical world, because he was like, oh, I've only taken it 3 times in my life. I'm like, and they kind of describe the dangers, but at the same time, I think that is a slippery slope, because like, why wouldn't you take it once a year, once a month? When, at what point does it start to backfire on you? The closing scene is really cheesy, but really good. I actually think the actors have some great moments in the next movie. We'll talk about that. Like, I think it's really a solid, like, there's a reason I think we all have it really high in our rankings, but I thought overall the performances were strongest. And that last scene, I was like, you know what, even though we're kind of doing this sentimental almost goodbye to Hogwarts, I thought it actually kind of worked. When Harry says, but I am the chosen one, I think it's hilarious.
I love that one part.
That one was really good.
And guys, that might be it. I actually had a negative I accidentally put in my
All right, you guys
There's
ready
just
for mine?
so many of them. They're everywhere.
Are you guys ready for mine?
I'm ready.
Yes.
Okay, I love the opening on Harry with them taking his pictures. I feel like it immediately takes us back to the last movie, gives you a reminder what just happened to Harry, pulls you in. I love the Death Eaters going around London and destroying the bridge and all that, because that's what is discussed in the other Minister chapter. Just stuff happening, and it's more out there and like apparent. It's unclear if they're supposed to be able to see the Death Eaters or if only we can see the Death Eaters, but I like it because you immediately feel like, okay, this is what's happening out in the real world. There's now this like real threat, and they're not hiding anymore. They're doing their stuff like crazy and killing
But it
people.
doesn't matter because the bridge is just going to be back the next movie and nothing will have happened to it.
Is the bridge just back? Because there's magic, you
No, I'm
guys.
kidding. That's
With
what
all
happens to
this
the
they're
burrow.
destroying, they can magic fix it. They have wands.
They needed
My
to
hell.
explain better what how the Wizarding world and the Muggle world were affected by Voldemort being back. I think they tried to yada yada that, and it kind of looks cool, but
Nope,
there's
I
no
think
way
it
to
looks great,
understand it.
and I think it gives you that feeling without having to go. That's a waste of time. This isn't a book. This is a movie. I don't need the Harry flirting scene, but I do like Harry Dumbledore just appearing. I think that's a cool shot, and like more in the real world. But I would have rather had the Dursley scene. Slughorn, amazing. The whole Slughorn scene, introduction, perfect. It feels like the book, that scene. I like it. Harry's arrival at the Burrow, I really like them like peeking over, like Harry, blah blah. It's just cutesy and fun. I have Weasley wizarding wheezes. Love that scene. I do wish, in general, it just happened mentioned that Harry gave them the money, but I guess it's not needed for the book. I love Flitwick interaction when they get there. I don't love that Tonks doesn't find him on the train. I love more Luna, but they didn't need to like
Or
replace
Tonks.
that. All the potion scenes I like. I think they're cute. I think they're fun. I love Hermione's hair getting bigger because she's stressed out. I just think it's such a good way to portray like how that's several scenes in the book, but you have to like condense it here. And Hermione, like you can feel her frustration of like not being the smartest, but Harry, like to her also like cheating. I think it's so good. I love, you know what? I feel like we're getting a little bit more of the Dumbledore that we wanted, and also the gay element of Dumbledore, because I feel like he's all up in Harry's business about who he's dating. You know, he loves the drama when they're in the hospital wing and Ron says Hermione. You kind of see that he loves that. Not to stereotype gay dudes, but I feel like they're like me. They like that drama a little bit.
Well, nobody even knew Dumbledore was gay yet, but he did like the drama. He did like his little Snape being so awkward in that hospital scene is actually quite funny.
I feel like he did better in this movie because Rowling gave him one note. Dumbledore's actually gay. And he's like, okay. I love the first flashback scene with Riddle. I love that little Riddle. That little shit that's
that little Riddle
torturing people in caves and stuff. I think that kid does such a good job. I think he actually does better in that scene, the Gambon. I feel like they should have done a younger actor than having Michael Gambon just with short hair. But I like Cormac. I think he does well. I like all the birds in this movie. There's that one. Ron goes, "What's with all the birds?" I know there's like, why is there so many birds in this movie? But I kind of like it, and I like the sound. They use a lot of flute in this movie, which I like. The Harry, the I am the chosen one. I like that scene a lot because as a non-Harry Hermione shipper, I think it demonstrates their friendship so much. Like they're friends. They're talking to each other about how they're both in love with like different people and they can't tell those people. And it proves that they're not in love with each other.
Can I tell you how many girls like became friends with, hoping that we'd become more, and getting stuck in the friend zone?
But Harry doesn't seem like that at all.
Harry's dumber than me, but it doesn't mean he doesn't have feelings for her.
I love that there was time for an actual like train ride home. Come on, for Christmas? We never get that.
They cut the funeral for that, Jamie.
No, they did the wand thingy. I really like the Arthur Harry scene in this, where like, I do like in the movies how Arthur seems a little more on Harry's side, like, and believing Harry. And it's like, Lupin's like, F you, and then they go have a sing amongst the plugs. I was so excited to see all the plugs. Love all the like drunkenness that Hermione seems drunk when they're walking back from Hogsmeade. Ron seems drunk on the love potion. Harry seems drunk on the Felix releases. Everyone just gets drunk, it feels like. But I think it's funny, and it adds like a funny element to it. And the shots, I just think it's so beautiful. I love the way Spinner Inn worked. I love Snape's house. I love the shot over when Snape's trying to heal Malfoy, and it's like the music, and he's like saying the spell. I don't know what you call that.
If we knew or cared a little bit more about the Half-Blood Prince, I think the Sectum Semper scene would have paid off. Yeah. Just kidding.
I think I'm
really
care.
being hater to me.
And I do think that Tom Felton does a great job with like the little time he had to like show a change of a character with just him like standing here in his suit, looking in the bathroom mirror in his suit. He did a really good job like portraying that he's torn by like what he has to do, which I think is good. I feel like there could have been more time given to that.
Don't watch the Rise of the Planet of the Apes, because he's so bad in that you just are like, what happened to all your
Did you read his book though? I read his book. It was good. But the cave scene, I mean, that's my favorite chapter in the books. And I feel like it was really well done. Thank goodness Gambon got it together for that scene. And this is what I want Lithgow to know. You gotta be in 7 years, buddy, ready to fight off some dudes in a cave. So start doing push-ups.
They're zombies. They're zombies.
It gets big. It gets big. But I love the music in this one. I joked that I was going to walk down the aisle to music in this. I just needed like an orchestra. I couldn't afford it. And then I like the burrow scene, not for the fact that it replaced the battle, because that's what it does. That's why they put it in. We know that's why they did it. So they introduced Greyback in that way. They have more Bellatrix. What that scene is trying to show is like what a threat now that the Death Eaters are and Voldemort are, that they're coming for them. They're coming to attack. And, you know, it's mentioned throughout the books that like it's dangerous for the Weasleys and these other people to be putting themselves out there as defenders of Dumbledore. And so this is a direct result of that. But man, I love a running through tall grass, running through a forest scene. You know I do. I made a school film just to show that. A girl running through a forest. I just think it's shot so well. I love the sound of Bellatrix continue echoing from the 5th movie. I killed Sirius Black. The Weasley parents, like Molly and Arthur, like their reaction to like Harry and Jenny running out there, like the fear. I don't know why they also don't run after them, but whatever.
They couldn't get through the fire.
Like
only Jenny could.
I think it's a good scene. Does that have anything to do with the book?
If only it had anything to do with the rest of the story, yeah.
But it does have something to do with the rest of the story. It's explaining the threat of the Death Eaters and how Bellatrix being out and Greyback is like, they do not give a crap. They're not afraid. They're going after them. And they're like, hey, if you're going to be with Dumbledore, then we're going to burn your house down. And then they're going to use magic to fix the house because they have magic.
I'm fine with the house being fixed. I just think that it doesn't make sense within the story. I see how it solves that element, that it brings forth that danger. I agree with that. And I agree with some of the filmmaking, like some of the sound design in it, some of the cutting is really interesting and cool. But I don't think if you haven't read the books, it subconsciously builds that danger, but otherwise it does not fit. I kind of feel that way about, I love Spinner's End, but I think I would not be surprised if people who hadn't read the books were a little bit confused about what's going on with Spinner's End and actually connecting Malfoy's whole journey. But I think Malfoy does a good job of being kind of torn. And then in the next one, we remember him and his parents kind of run away, and we're kind of left with maybe he was just a bully and a coward and not an actual murderous bad person. But at the same time, they were like, obviously everything Lucius did his whole life was horrible. And I just can't forgive it. And how many people idolized Draco. And
well, it's supposed to exemplify that love, the love of their family union, but the dad didn't care about their family before. besides like
They were always
status.
clinging on to power, whatever it was, right? It was Voldemort. When Voldemort was gone, it was still their money and Fudge and the Ministry, and then so that was just like whatever they had to do to hold on to the power and influence. And then once, I guess it did hit a point where they decided my family's more important, so they walked away from Voldemort too, which I think is interesting because according to Dumbledore, right, love is the most important thing. Or
According to the book, that's
Love is all you need.
Well, I mean,
all you
according
need is
to
love.
the Beatles.
Is all you need. But I think the
Moulin
scene
Rouge.
works, and I think all these things work in the confines of this movie. That's my point. I feel like it works in the movie
they had to trade
world.
it for other things, and I do not like what they traded.
But I think it was their solution for
That's what
being
it was.
told they had to.
It was, but at the same time, it's like, let's create a thing here so that we can have a better payoff toward the end, right? When they break into the castle and they're there and everything. Like, okay, but I just feel like there's other things that they didn't address, which then cause problems further down the story. And then again, we saw the repercussions from the same movie doing the same things, like books 3, 4, 5. And so there's things in book 6 that they couldn't really just show because it wouldn't make sense, right? So I think that there needs to be more of an eye on the overall story.
Well, and I get that, but you don't have time to do that in a movie. And this movie is just paying for the sins of the past movies that things weren't brought up. And so they just made their own thing out of it. And I feel like they're trying to like, oh, I didn't even mention my favorite freaking part. They're trying to like contain all those things in these scenes. Like the Burrow burning is like the burning of the innocents. Harry's safe place outside of Hogwarts is like under threat now. Like no one's safe. So like the death of innocence, this is what's happening. Your childhood has died, is in the ashes of Burrow, and now you gotta be a phoenix and go out of it and get the Horcruxes. Also, the scene, Aragorn's scene with the story about the fishbowl, best change. So much. I think that scene is better than the book in that way. Like obviously you like the background of Harry like getting them more drunk and pretending to drink and not, and all that stuff is in the book is fun. But that story about the fish, I bawl every time. How Lily gave him the fish and it turned into and then the day she died it was gone. Like it just explains so much about Lily, like that we really haven't gotten, that like people love Lily. She was like such a light to the world, and we need that coming up with Snape. We need to know that she was like wonderful.
I love that you love it, Jamie. But I just feel like
it doesn't make sense though, because you're so much harder on so many of the other changes. And I'm like, maybe at this point you're just giving up. You're like, hey, it's different from the books.
I told
so
you,
I'm gonna
I've
embrace
given
what
up
it
from
is.
the books and the movies. I told you that's what I came to.
All right. Let me throw in a few notes. These are very minor little tweaks, and then we'll move into, I think these segue into how we're going to map out the television series differences. First of all, we've never seen an open carriage on the train before, and they essentially cheated it to be able to do the sequence the way they wanted. And that's just a production cheat that I didn't like. Harry wanting to be an Auror. It's interesting that in the beginning of this, McGonagall's like, oh, you need to take potions so you can keep doing that. I love the chapter career advice, and I love the way that McGonagall and Umbridge go at it in number 5, and because they skip that, it's a little confusing knowing that that's kind of what Harry wants to do after this, and how that blends into that, which is just a really weird misconnection. The other thing is nonverbal magic in this. It's like, it's kind of interesting how the magic builds. Like in 5, they're learning to apparate, and in 6, they're learning nonverbal magic. And in this one, sometimes we see Dumbledore use nonverbal magic. Students randomly do. We've seen wandless magic a little bit, which is supposed to be really special. And I think I need that magic system consistency a little bit in my head, and I think it'll pay off. And then, so that takes me into my plan going forward, is that the train ride should be a bottle episode, because you have Harry getting on with his friends, Harry being separated for the Slug Club and deciding that he does not like the Slug Club. And one thing I think over the full season is seeing Harry reject Slughorn time and time again, and then accept Slughorn's invitation, and how that Christmas obviously plays into that because he plans it around Harry, and how that plays into, like, these things all, like, they did a good job in some ways of making them fun in one scene, but they all pay off so much more with that time. The way that develops Harry and Slughorn's relationship. So I think that initial Slug Club meeting, which is kind of where he finds out Belby's not close to his uncle, and he's kind of a douche to Belby. And that's where you see Slughorn's kind of real sliminess. I think they could do a great job of doing that. And then Harry leaving that, still not going back to his friends, spying on Malfoy. And it's kind of confusing because Malfoy and his friends don't really talk about anything. Whereas in the book, it seems like they ride the line of saying something that might intrigue Harry. Whereas this is just Harry kind of getting caught. And then, yes, I want Tonks there. I want Tonks to pop in a few times and be like, why is there an extra Auror here? And it's because like
So
Harry
random
needs
dudes walking
that
in
helps
the background.
Harry know that he's in danger. Yeah, but they kind of give it up after the first. I think in the opening scene,
There's a
in the
few where you
Great
just see like a
Hall.
random guy walking by. Like,
Yeah,
oh, that guy
it's-
was, or that one guy gets like shoved aside by Bellatrix.
I just wish
I think
it
this is
was
the beginning of this
communicated.
movie, though, is Harry being a kind of bumbling around, right? He sneaks in there, they don't say anything important, then he gets caught, and Tonks has to save him, and then later he can't do anything to protect Dumbledore either. He's just sitting there watching. I think it's not a good look for our guy. That's all.
The whole movies aren't a good look for our guy. He's so passive.
That's fair.
Yeah, developing that relationship with Slughorn, and then of course developing the relationship with Dumbledore, which starts with Harry waiting for him that night at the at number 4 Privet Drive, and then them doing the lessons together, which therefore is us learning more about Voldemort and like Hepzibah Smith, and we missed so many of those little elements of back. And I
The
think that's
creepy
something
Molly and
there's no
Arthur
way they
scene.
would have had time for. The creepy what scene?
The flirting Molly and Arthur scene, is that in 6?
Yeah,
Oh,
Where he like
secret
overhears them.
names.
I
He's
kind of
like,
like how
"Hey,
that
babe."
makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Molly,
it's cute,
Molly
though.
Wobbles.
Like when I was a kid, that was really uncomfortable. But now it's like, oh, that's just too adult. It's not even
But,
that
like-
bad. But when I was a kid, I was like, ew.
It parallels with the kids. So anyway,
Yes.
let me summarize this: that we need more time for the Harry Slughorn, which leads to the Horcruxes, the Harry Dumbledore, which leads to the Voldemort backstory, and then the Quidditch stuff, which is silly and side piece, but I want more time. And then lastly is developing the Half-Blood Prince. I need that vitriol from Harry towards Snape to be so like, you know, because we had Occlumency last year, and then when Harry realizes that he's essentially been worshiping his least favorite person, I
Mhm.
think that the entire title of the book / movie doesn't pay off well enough. And I think they could have done that, but they would have had to give up other things. So I'm just saying, in the movie, Harry being obsessed with Draco and this book, and Harry spending that time with Dumbledore and Slughorn, that is what the gift is going to be, is seeing those stretch out over a season.
I
They
agree.
do make it a nice little thing, I'd say, at the end of the movie. Like when you figure out that when he says he's the Half-Blood Prince, it is kind of like a whoa, but there's not the weight to it, like you were saying, because you don't quite get just how much Harry's relied on him and how much like he's had to, in large part, he's come to rely on him so much because he has to defend him to Harry all the time, right? Is that the prince isn't a bad guy, and then of course Sectum Sempra stuff happens. So, but I think that's a really cool bottle episode idea. I was actually kind of thinking about all the lessons with Dumbledore, and it's almost like most episodes need to have like a lesson with Dumbledore in there, where you get like snippets over the course of the season about Voldemort's like past, and then the real Voldemort kind of comes in when the pawns that he's got in the castle and moving things around, right, to try and get Dumbledore, to kill him. And so that's kind of what I was thinking as far as like it wouldn't be a bottle episode, but like a portion of each episode, just Harry and Dumbledore sitting in the office talking, and then you get like a little flashback with it. Would be cool. But I think that's a really important part of the pacing. And this one's got to be longer. Like I really was going back. I was trying to find when they announced, like when we knew that book 7 was going to be split into 2 movies. Because part of me was like, why didn't they do that with 6? If they were going to start that precedent, they should have just done it with
I think
so much
I
stuff
think
to carry over.
it was decided after 5 that 7 would be 2. I can't remember for sure, but I feel like it was. And I'm sure they were like, well, then 6 has to be tight or whatever, because they weren't going to give them
'cause we're
4.
going to
But
blow the budget.
they
on
probably
some more.
should have. The movies made money.
I mean, no,
But
we're
everyone
getting a
was
series out
tired.
of it now, so I can't complain too much. But obviously, I still complain plenty. So
Anything else, Steve?
no, I think as far as like number of episodes and stuff, I mean, this is where I feel like it does start to get longer. But we talked before about 12, like even for book 5, I think we could still do like a 6 and 6 split to get everything out for this one. I just think it through the timing, right? If you did like an episode for Slughorn and Harry getting to, King's Cross and all that stuff, then if you have your bottle episode, Mitchell was talking about for book episode 2, everything on the train, like stretch all that out. And then you get to the school and you only have 10 episodes left to go through everything else. And I think it's probably doable. It could be cool.
I agree. I just feel like, I said this at the beginning. I just have to look at the books and the movies as 2 different things. And I'm hoping this show is more like the books, which is like it has the time to be more like it. I like this movie because I think it's a well done movie. And I don't like it because it's necessary in the book. So I feel like this series of television is going to be so different. And that's why I keep saying, they're like, why are they redoing the same thing? I feel like all of these, there's still a lot of things that you can like change or interpret differently. But the series, if they do it more like the books, it's going to feel so different than the movies. I really, bottle episode wise, I thought about maybe like a pensive thing with them like doing a few of those all at once. So you're jumping in. Again, this is, my bottle episodes are not bottles, but like
we could say they're
covering
isolating one element of
Yes.
the story or two of the characters rather
So,
than a
like,
bottle episode should be all one room. I mean, I put mine on a
Dumbledore-
train. It was close.
Dumbledore and Harry like going in and seeing more. Maybe there's an episode kind of just about this development of like Voldemort. Again, I want more Voldemort, but maybe the other minister and Spinner's End could be one episode where we don't even see Harry for the first episode of the season,
Yeah.
which would be wild.
Season premiere or 2-episode season premiere. You couldn't do that.
Do it, depending on how well this does. But yeah, I think this has to be like 13 episodes, 15.
For some
But,
reason,
yeah.
I thought this book more than the last. I was like, I need time for these relationships. I need time for the like memories and just the amount of things that happen. It just makes me think we're gonna need more. And if they're gonna do however many for season 1, I'm like, it needs to be. And what if they do set up a new like storyline or something? Then we're expanding even more. And I do think they need to stick to the books to keep it contained, which stinks because like you'd almost be like, oh, there are little bits from J.K. Rowling's notes that could have been an interesting thing. But maybe those just help develop these side characters more and us get to know them a little bit earlier. People, things pay off later on. I just think so many things happen that if this one was like 7 and 7 and the next one was 8 and 8, I wouldn't be mad. Just it gives more time to have every memory, every Quidditch thing, every Slug Club rejection,
This is like kind of the end of Hogwarts. Like this is the end of like our school years and really the end of like innocence. Like a lot of this book is like kids sneaking off to make out and things like that. Like things that feel typical, obviously, again, with Harry Potter mixed with like insane things going on. But going into the next book, it's not like fun anymore. It's serious. They're fighting. They're not Sirius Black, but it's serious.
I think that shows that like 4, 5, 6, they need to be like, oh, we're not the noobs anymore, and we're gonna go like we're gonna have fun. There is flirtations. There is like this one is the crescendo essentially because from here on out it's war.
Well, and the problem with this movie, and this is my problem with the last movie as well, is the things that should have been built up weren't built up, and part of that's because all the books weren't out in the beginning. Things they couldn't help, but now we know better, so do better. Like. We need to feel for these people. We need to care that people die. We need to like Dumbledore. So, I mean, I'm sad when he dies no matter because I'm mixing my feelings of the book and the movie. So I don't know how other people feel, but like you need to care about these people. So like, I mean, I went on this tangent before. So like we have to build that out throughout to make these last seasons mean something and better because the next movie is my favorite. And I think that's because it's focused on the 3 characters that we know from the movies. We don't really know anyone else. So build it out, have those side character stories, build up freaking Neville and Voldemort and Dumbledore, these very important characters. Like, it doesn't just need to be about the trio.
Well, and this
It's like when you have the Battle of Hogwarts, right? It's not just that people die, which is sad, but it's like
you have to care.
Lavender Brown dies, Colin Creevey dies, Tonks and Lupin die, and like these people who you've like gotten to know and come to care about and who've cared about Harry are all like gone in one fell swoop. But like when you don't know them that well, it's just a people.
You don't,
It's like, oh,
Yeah,
that
like-
sucks. It doesn't punch the same way.
Lupin only really gets one book. Sirius kind of gets one book. Like, it is interesting to see how they could sprinkle those personalities through just a little bit more. Tonks could be so interesting just with a couple extra scenes and a couple things built on. And this sets up Horcruxes, which in the end is really important. Like, the Star of 7 is really the Hallows. This sets up the Horcruxes, and then they kind of pay off by merging. And I think this could go a long way in bringing those things together. Do you guys have any rapid fire leftover notes or any critical elements of adaptation before I split off a final mind?
I think Jamie hit it. I was for Golden Stitch. I was just gonna say that the most critical storytelling decision is like the characters. We've got to see enough of them, care enough about them. We've got to have their interactions with Harry, where they help develop who he is, and so he can be the guy in the end who takes down Voldemort, right? And so I feel like that's just they got to find a way to squeeze those elements of the story in so we can spend time with those characters. And that's what will make it all worth it.
Points to them at the beginning for showing Ollivander be taken, which isn't really paid off until the next movie.
Yeah, that's true.
Or the 8th movie, which is like, that's kind of stuff we want to see. Like, you didn't even have to have the actor there. They just had some guy with them taken off. But things like that where it's like, oh, this happened. We could only show you real quickly. But at least it's like a play and payoff in a little bit of a way, you know?
R.I.P. John Hurt. Yeah, they need to round out these
R.I.P.
characters
everybody.
really well. It's like, I think we know Hermione and Ron well enough by now, but in this, they kind of don't get given that. They're really there more for the social side of things, which is interesting because that means that Harry has kind of carried forth that isolation from the last book. And I think that could be talked about a bit more. Like, their storyline is kind of about them and about love and about insecurity, which is important. And that does carry forth to their actions in the next one. But I think then that they need to continue to be fueled and intertwined.
It's one of those continuity things too, where because in in year 5 it ends where Harry is able to stop Voldemort from possessing him because of his love for his friends and these people who he cares about and everything, right? And then you go into the next movie, which is supposed to be just a few weeks later, and he's like, I don't know, even more isolated from them and things, and that's, I think, is weird. It's kind of like he's supposed to have like this realization, and then, oh yeah, let's like section them off a little bit and have him do his own thing for the next movie.
Well, that's like I mean, this is going to be a problem throughout, but Harry's isolation is so internalized. How are they going to show that on screen? And to Mitchell's complaint about the Half-Blood Prince in that book, that's what isolates Harry in this book. He's so obsessed with this Half-Blood Prince and the fact that people don't believe him about Draco, that's what isolates him here, even though he shouldn't be, since all this stuff is out, he shouldn't be as isolated. But of course, something new pops up and they need to just really kind of push that and not just have people telling him he's lonely or whatever the whole time.
Remember how he was
wrong? I think J.K. Rowling does a good job of that in the books.
Yes,
I just feel like
she's really good about writing about
to the movies. They rely on other things.
Depression and
messes with some of the character relationships.
It's kind of like in 5, remember, he was wrong about Sirius getting taken. He was fooled by his memories. And so it's almost like Boy Who Cried Wolf, him like now saying this stuff about Draco and then being like, oh, there's another one. I have some stray thoughts, which may or may not be important, that I'm going to run through. First of all, the 12 uses of dragon's blood. Do you guys ever remember thinking that was going to turn into like mattering?
It did matter because apparently Dumbledore knows what dragon blood tastes like because of that. So
one of the uses, fuel for your body. But it was just funny that he tasted. I'm like, oh, like him being one of the discoverers of that. I thought that could have been useful, interesting. Yep. At the end of this, at the end of Order, I don't know if they made it clear that all of those people had been arrested, like that Draco's dad is in prison. Yeah. But Malfoy is walking around in a funeral suit with a stick like his father. He apparently
he was inherited. In the suit in 5 already.
But him inheriting the walking stick just cracks me up. Hermione still needs to be a little bit academically obsessed. I think they kind of don't do enough of that in 5 or this. And then this goes back to the fire, like the safety of Grimmauld Place as the headquarters, and then the Burrow becomes the headquarters in some ways. The safety and things to this place, like it was so easy to get to the Weasleys. I don't know. We don't need to reiterate that. And then there's not very much Hagrid in this. Harry is a bad wingman. The clouds behind Hagrid and Slughorn look super fake. And lastly, you guys see there's an hourglass in Slughorn's office, and he says if conversation is good, it slows down, and if it's bad, I don't remember that. I don't know if I've just ignored that every time I've ever seen this, but I want one of those hourglasses. That was like a nice magical touch.
I do like that a lot. I like all the there's a few magical things in here that are just fun, like Slughorn being the couch, and I don't know. And I love the scene where he goes to take the venom from the spider and he breaks off part of the spider. He's like, that scene is just so funny. And the part where he's like, when Harry's gonna go down to see Hagrid, he's like, Harry, and Harry's like, sir. I love that moment. It's so good.
It might be because in the next one, the actors are asked to do some really difficult things, and it's so isolating for the 3 of them that they do each kind of have like maybe a rough moment or two. Whereas this one, because they're given a little bit easier, I think this might be the better all-around performances.
I think Emma Watson in the next one is so good. I think it's the best acting she's ever done in part 1. I think it's so good. She carries that movie for me. But I do think there's moments where Daniel's really good at this one, and I think that's one of them. Again, when they're all acting a little tipsy, they do really great, these kids.
I
know they were drinking during this, so maybe they just knew.
Yeah, the low drinking. I know everyone starts drinking at like 13 here. All right, well, Half-Blood Prince, a great book, a good movie. I do really enjoy this book and this. I did enjoy the movie a lot. I just think that
Well, just so
it
you
departed
know,
in
if
so
we
many
ever
ways.
sit down to watch Harry Potter, Steven would rather watch Chamber of Secrets over this, which is wild to me.
Yeah, well, that makes no sense. I'll be honest. There's no movie that I mind sitting down watching other than Chamber. It's the only one I'm not excited about. But next week, we're going to go ahead and we're going to recap everything that we know about the television. We're going to make sure we're unearthing all the actual quotes. We're hoping for some news. It's Easter break here in London. So if some of those actors are UK kids that they wanted to get out of school and do some promo stuff with, make some announcements with before, and then they're going to film during their summer, this could be a decent time for it. So we're hoping something new comes along. Otherwise, we're just going to recap everything. And we're really going to take all the thoughts we've had from our rewatch and just say, here are the keys going forward. And then we'll go back to back on Deathly Hallows. We'll have another quiz. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming up. And if you want to connect with us beyond this, please follow us on social media at HPTVPod. We're having a lot of fun on the TikToks and the Reels. And if you want to email us, go ahead and email us at hptvpodcast@gmail.com. Do you guys have any closing thoughts?
Bye. We'll put this episode in sepia. Thank you.
Oh, I'm going to do it.
All right. Peace out, snitches.